After well over a year, Israel and Hamas have agreed to a ceasefire deal. It'll pause fighting in Gaza and lead to the phased release of hostages and Palestinian prisoners. Western Mass News reporter Addie Patterson joins us in studio after speaking with the local Jewish Federation about today's announced deal. Addie?
Abby, earlier today I spoke with members of the Jewish Federation of Western Mass. They say they're hopeful this ceasefire will pave the way for future safety and security throughout the region.
This is a really important step forward.
On Wednesday, Israel and Hamas finally came to a hostage ceasefire agreement after nearly 15 months at war. The agreement pausing the war in Gaza and leading to the release of Israeli hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners.
Definitely a lot of mixed emotions coming from people, a lot of, worry about next steps and where this might lead.
Western Mass News spoke with the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Western Massachusetts, Nora Gorenstein. She tells us one of the hardest parts during this time period for both the Israeli people, friends, and family is knowing that there are still hostages being held by Hamas.
That piece has been kind of the stumbling block that, you can't really get past in terms of finding a solution and thinking about other next steps. How do we forget about these individuals who we've really been holding in our hearts and our minds for well over a year now?
While there's still work to be done and uncertainty ahead, the Federation says they're hopeful this first phase of the agreement will help make a path for the remaining hostages to be reunited with their families and for the hostilities to come to an end.
It's very difficult to find a resolution in that circumstance when the best possible result for one group is the complete annihilation of the other group. There's really just no real middle ground there. So I think the best that we can hope for in this situation is to try to find a measure of lasting compromise that will hold for a period of time in the region.
Gorenstein also tells Western Mass News she remains optimistic this agreement will help bring back a sense of unity.
Just having respect for one another and recognizing that we as Americans are not here to tell any other country what to do, any other government what to do, but we can show respect and just kind of a basic level of decency toward one another.
In a statement shared with Western Mass News, the Federation expressed their gratitude, thanking both President Biden and President-elect Trump for their unprecedented coordination to bring both sides together to get this deal done. For now, reporting live in studio, Addie Patterson for Western Mass News.